Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we continue this theme of the Songs of Ascent, in which we are going through these 15 Psalms that are called the Songs of Ascent, and kind of are the Psalms that were sung as the people, the Israelites, were making their way to Jerusalem and ultimately to the sanctuary. And it starts off with them afar off, and then they begin their journey, and then there's several Psalms that deal with the city, Psalms 122 through 131. And then the last few Psalms are about them going to the inner sanctuary, or to the sanctuary, to the temple. And so there is this progression that takes place with all of these various Psalms. Now, today we are in Psalm 122, in which they enter into the city. It says, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. And so at this point, they've entered into the city. They had a heart to go to the city in Psalm 120. And then in 121, they actually begin the journey. And now in Psalm 122, they're standing in the city. And there's basically two different analogies we could make between what they would have experienced and what we experience as Christians. Now, they made it to Jerusalem and were able to enter into the city, and we too have an entrance into the city. And it's one of those things where it's a already but not yet sort of situation, where we are already in the city, just as they would have been already in the city, but at the same time we are seeking a city to come. In the book of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 22, it speaks about us as though we are already in the city. It says, but you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels, to the general assembly in the church of the firstborn, who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect. So there he says, you've already entered into the city being the church, the general assembly, and the church of the firstborn, who are enrolled in heaven. And so there's a sense in which we too are in Jerusalem. We are in the Jerusalem that is from above, talked about in Galatians chapter 4 and verse 26. But then there's also a sense in which we are looking ahead to a city. In Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 14, it says, For here we do not have a lasting city, but we are seeking the city which is to come. And so we are in the city, but we also are seeking a city. When the new Jerusalem comes down out of heaven, talked about in the book of Revelation, when the church as the bride of Christ comes down and inhabits the new heavens and the new earth, then we'll have the city in its full manifestation. But we are already in that new Jerusalem. We're already in the heavenly Jerusalem in a sense, in that we are a part of the church. We're a part of the city of God. And so we could say, yes, we are in the gates. We have entered into the city, but there's also a sense in which we are looking forward to the time when we will enter into the city in its full consummation and in its full manifestation. And so this psalm can be made. We can make application from it from both sides, but the main idea is that we've made it into the church. We are in the city, and whether it's in the fully manifested state, or as we see it today, either way, we are in the city, and we can think of this in the context of the church. And so when it says, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord, it could be talking about, let us go to the church. I was glad when I was able to enter into the church, to enter into the new Jerusalem, or in the heavenly Jerusalem. Talked about there in Hebrews chapter 12. This could be talked about as the church. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 19 through 22, talk about the fact that the Gentiles and the Jews have been brought together to become the household of God and to become a temple being built up for him. And so going to the house of the Lord can mean going to the church. It says, our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Again, the Jerusalem that's above, talked about in Galatians chapter 4. It says, Jerusalem that is built as a city that is compacted or compact together, to which the tribes grow up, even the tribes of the Lord, an ordinance for Israel to give thanks to the name of the Lord, for their thrones, were set for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. And so here we see that this Jerusalem that they entered into, the city that they entered into, has a lot of descriptions that are similar to the church. It is a city. We've already talked about that. Hebrews chapter 12. Also, we could reference Galatians 4 on that. It's a house, again, Ephesians chapter 2. But it's also a gathering of people. It says, as a city that is compact together, the New American Standard says. But that can also be translated as one which has a company together. In other words, a city that is built for people to congregate in, to come together in, which is really what Jerusalem was. It was a place where people come together. As a matter of fact, in Acts chapter 2 that we read today, when they heard everybody in their own language and they list out the different people or the different locations that the people were from, it makes a complete circle around Jerusalem, showing that Jerusalem was in the center of where all these people were traveling. And so Jerusalem was definitely a place where people would congregate, even if they lived very, very far away. And the church is like that as well, of course. That's brought out in Ephesians chapter 2, going into the early part of chapter 3, where he talks about the fact that we've been brought together into one new man. And we become a part of this temple that is really a gathering of people from all different nations, all different backgrounds, to become the people of God and to make up this city, this heavenly city. And then it's also a place where thanks is given. It says, to which the tribes go up, even the tribes of the Lord, an ordinance for Israel to give thanks to the name of the Lord. And then we could go also back to Hebrews chapter 13, where we were before. And there he talks about the sacrifice that we offer is the praise of our lips that gives thanks to his name. And so thanks is our sacrifice that we bring to the Lord within this city, as they would give thanks as well, in the city being referenced here in Psalm 122. David's rule is in the church. It says in verse 5, for their thrones were set up for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. And again, we could reference Acts chapter 2 and verse 30, where it talks about Jesus being the son of David and taking up his throne. And so as we follow Christ, we're really following the rule of David, or it's connected to the throne of David, in that Jesus, as a descendant of David, had now become the true ruler of God's people. And so we can see the church is similar to the description here. It's a city, it's a house, it's a gathering of people, it's a place where people give thanks, and it's a place where we follow Christ's rule, who was a descendant of David, who carried on the rule of David. And so we should do what the psalmist says to do here. Pray for peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. May peace be within your walls and prosperity within your palaces. For the sake of my brothers and my friends, I will now say, may peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. Which is very similar to what is spoken about in 1 Timothy chapter 2 by the Apostle Paul, where he instructs Timothy that certain prayers should be offered up for the sake of the church for peace. This is brought out again in 1 Timothy chapter 2. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, where he says, first of all, then, I urge that entreaties and prayers, petitions and thanksgivings be made on behalf of all men, for kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. This is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior, who desires all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. And there he's saying we need to pray for the people who are in charge so that we can live a tranquil and quiet life, so that there can be peace in Jerusalem, peace in the city of God, which is the church. So Psalm 122 can do several things for us. It can help us to look forward to the time when we go into the New Jerusalem and the fully manifested city of Jerusalem as it comes down out of heaven to inhabit the new heavens and the new earth. But it can also help us in the present day to recognize the blessing that we have, that we are in the church, we are in the city, our feet have entered or are standing within the gates of Jerusalem, that is the heavenly Jerusalem, the church, and that we should give thanks to the Lord because of that, but we should also pray for peace within the church on a day-to-day basis. So these are some things to think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.